Hello and welcome to the recording of Low Code Powering the Northern Powerhouse. This was a virtual interactive event that was run with Mendix, who provide low code platform solutions to many industries, including the government sector, and had participation from Greater Manchester Combined Authority and Knowsley Council, both who are based in the Northwest. We join the recording where Kieran Smith, Project Manager at Greater Manchester Combined Authority, is giving us a little insight into what the Greater Manchester Combined Authority is and what it does. Over to you, Kieran.
Support of those priority areas. So really, you're probably very familiar with some of the people that we've got politically in the region, especially during COVID, and the arguments between Greater Manchester and central government. But we're really proud of the strides that we've made with digital across the region. The CA is a combined authority, so we work with the 10 council areas across Greater Manchester, work with GMP, Greater Manchester Police, Greater Manchester Fire and Rescue Service, Transport for Greater Manchester. And I think one of the key points that I want to make at this stage is that we work with those localities who've got existing systems, existing roadmaps and aspirations, and I suppose with the theme of today and looking at Mendix and low code, when we are looking to develop things from the centre, we definitely see Mendix as one of our strategic partners, and it provides us with that flexibility and ability to rapidly develop and supplement where there may be existing gaps across localities with their existing systems. So just quickly a bit about Greater Manchester and what we're trying to achieve here. So I'm not going to spend too long on it. We're the fastest growing digital sector outside of London, with a 5 billion economy, and we've got over 2.8 million residents across the region and a bigger economy than both Wales and Northern Ireland. Greater Manchester's got over 10,000 brilliant digital and creative businesses, with 86,000 people who are currently working in the sector across the region. Obviously predominantly based out of Manchester, but actually growing amongst the other 10 localities as well. Sorry, bear with me a second. So talking about the digital priorities, which I referred to before, and there's a bit of delay in the slide, so I do apologise. So 5 digital priorities there: empowering people, enabling innovative public services, digitally enabling all businesses, creating and scaling digital businesses, and being a global digital influencer. So in my role as digital program manager, I'm working very much in the delivery of public sector services, looking at how we can use innovative technology to both improve the provision of those services from a worker perspective, but also actually putting the citizens across Greater Manchester in control of their own data and giving them really usable and useful tools to access those services as well. When we're talking about early years, which is the wide-ranging programme that we're working on at the moment, moves from pre-birth to 5 years old for children and the parents and carers who support those children. We are looking really at predominantly empowering people and that enabling innovative public services. So those 2 priorities that we're supporting with this piece of work. As a Mendix are very much our strategic partner, and Objectivity, our delivery partner, have been working with us hand in hand to actually develop the early years application and other applications that we're currently developing. So when we're talking about the early years application, we're actually talking about an application that is being developed by the GMCA, but has very much got significant engagement from all 10 councils, health visiting providers. We're also talking to midwifery. We're looking at nursery settings and education settings as well, so that we're looking at initially health visiting services, but how can we actually use Mendix and other strategic partners that we've got to share information better, put the parent carers in control of their own data, and actually just improve school readiness. And I'll just skip past these slides and get onto the actual use case. I will share these details at the end as well, so if anybody wants to actually follow us, look at what the kind of work we're doing across the region, then I'll share those details. But early years, so we're actually looking at Mendix as a tool to to improve the delivery of our public services across Greater Manchester. I think we are one of the first customers, and Nick and others will probably say if I'm wrong on this, who are looking at using Mendix and Local within the health sector. And also now within local authorities and education as well. So what we've been trying to do, and the problem that we've been trying to solve, I don't know how familiar people are with early years services on the call, is that this isn't a specific problem. We've got 10 councils across the region, but each of those councils is at a different stage in their digital maturity. There are a number of different systems or still processes that are currently on paper, and that information, because it's on paper or because systems don't talk to each other or because the professionals aren't talking to each other, doesn't get shared. So timely, so really important information is being shared in a timely way. And Greater Manchester currently is below the national average for school readiness. I think we're about 68.5% of our children are actually going to school and being assessed as being school ready. I think the national is 72%, around 72%. So what do we want to do? We want to use digital as a tool to transform paper-based processes. We want to share information better, and we want to improve school readiness across the region. Our first area that we focused on, so early years moved from midwifery to health visiting to early education settings and then to education. We're focusing on the health visiting services as our first cohort of professionals, and we have worked with Mendix and Objectivity to develop an application. We're the first region nationally to be able to develop a solution like this. And the reason for that is there are copyright restrictions in place on the assessments that are used by health visitors who are assessing child development as part of the early years offer. So first region to be able to broker those digital copyright licenses and agreements. And it's a really exciting time. The NHS are actually in conversations with us as well, trying to understand if there's scalability in this across nationally, and understanding what the opportunities there are. So just again, just a quick summary of what we've actually delivered. So we've developed an early years application. It's both health visitor and parent carer facing, predominantly parent and carer facing. We've used the Welcome platform, Mendix platform to house all of the assessments that were currently paper based. And what happens is there are 8 universal stages where every single child across Greater Manchester is offered an assessment to monitor the development of that child. Health visitors take ownership of that process from 0 to 2.5 years, and at 0 new birth, an automatic notification will go out to the parent carer, and it'll say, there's an assessment that's waiting for your child, and they will complete that digitally. It'll send a notification back through to the health visitor, and they will then moderate those scores. What we've had to do and recognise is that because of COVID, the health visiting workforce isn't actually able to deliver the full Healthy Child programme, which is the programme that mandates the delivery of the undertaking of those assessments. So what we've done is we've been able to respond really rapidly to emerging requirements. We've actually developed a really robust front-end reporting tool operationally for practitioners and their managers, and they're more easily able to identify those children that aren't meeting expectations and target the reduced resource that they've got out of those families that aren't meeting those expectations. So rapidly being able to respond to emerging requirements. And what we've also done as well is work with other trusted suppliers. So we've been working with the BBC. We've been able to develop a library content within the early years application, so that parent carers not only can they go in and complete assessments, but they can actually go in, complete assessments and actually access content. So at 12 months, I've been asked to complete an assessment on my child. What things should I be looking out for? And what we really want to do is create a really rich and usable tool for parent carers that isn't just about completing assessments. It's actually providing providing real benefit. And I think one of the key points here is the GMCA doesn't have any legacy systems. We don't have any off-the-shelf big products such as your Liquid Logics or your Capita products. But what we wanted to do was develop something that could be used and supplement each of the 10 localities across Greater Manchester. But also we could potentially integrate into local systems as well. And that's where you see the Greater Manchester Digital Platform reference in the top left-hand corner. Mendix is a key strategic tool that we use across Greater Manchester, but we've got a number of different suppliers who are looking at integrating the application into existing systems so that we're not aiming to replace any of the big systems that are already in the localities, but how can we actually supplement and support with creating that consistency in data capture and data quality by integrating the early years app into those systems that already exist. We've been the first region nationally as well, I believe, to do this, to integrate or to authenticate users using the Mendix platform by putting the NHS login and NHS mail at the front end of that. So if you're a health visitor and you're logging in using the same credentials that you've got within your own Active Directory, if you're a parent carer, you're using the NHS login authentication, so you're actually evidencing and providing evidence that you're the person you say you are, and then that authentication is there throughout the usage of the app and any other NHS services that they may be accessing as well. So we went live actually, so just let me go back. We've gone live with 2 localities at the moment across the 10. So what we found was that some of the less digitally mature localities saw immediate benefit in going live with an application because they were all paper-based, completely paper-based. For some of the more advanced localities, they wanted to wait until we could actually integrate the application into existing systems before they would go live. So at the moment, there are 10, as I said, there are 10 councils across Greater Manchester, and we've got engagement from 9 out of the 10. We're just working on the 10th one at the moment to get that full suite, and really being able to respond rapidly, as I've said. So our partners Objectivity kindly supported the pulling together of this slide. So what we've done, and this was only in a 6-month period, is digitized 42 forms with 20 weeks of development. And what we've assessed that as is actually a saving of 90% using low-code than what we would have achieved using traditional development. And the ability to iterate and respond to emerging requirements and work in an agile way is much more supported by using local, we found. And as we've got such a big stakeholder base as well, and such a changing landscape, as I said, through COVID and other health initiatives that are being rolled out, the ability to respond rapidly as being critical in the success of what we've done at GM level. So I've talked about this already. So what we've also done actually as well is we've used the development that we've done for early years to also look at other applications and be able to rapidly develop those. So we've looked at expanding the health visiting gap into early education settings, and we're going live with 3 localities in the new year on that piece. And then we've also developed a community midwifery application, which is around the cessation or stopping of smoking across Greater Manchester for parents that are pregnant with children. I think it's fair to say that we've had our own challenges, and I think these have been predominantly because we have been one of the first customers that's actually gone into the health world. And the health world bringing with it its own standards that any clinical system, which it was deemed as, needs to adhere to. I'm from a local authority background, so it was new for me, but it was also, I think it was fair to say, new for Mendix and Objectivity. But we managed to get over that and get those clinical safety reports, and the DCB 0169 and 0160 that you've got referenced there are the names of those 2 standards that we had to meet. I think information governance is one of the most complex areas that we have to work through as well, especially given the fact that the CA combined authority isn't the actual data controller. So we had to work and do lots of data processing arrangements and agreements and DPIAs, etc., with the localities to be able to onboard them and draw out and make that those different data processing arrangements and roles. But we managed to get through that as well, and that's been something that we've been able to blueprint and then use across other projects and programs that we've been looking at, including the midwifery, smoking cessation, and the early education ones, which I've just referred to. And also I've talked about the digital platform and what we're trying to achieve. As Mendix is one of the organisations or suppliers that we're working with there, but we have both Mendix and Objectivity are on the call, but we've been working with ANS Civica, Philips, Shaping Cloud and Egress to actually look at that integration platform that we've sat the early years application on top of. And the next phase of work that we're actually looking to do, I think, is really exciting, because we've got the early years app, but as I said, the integration is a requirement for a lot of the localities. So the next stage that we're looking at is integrating the app into the NHS spine and actually getting a data feed directly into the app using the wider components of the digital platform that allow us to automate the flow of data into the application. And then the second phase, which we're working on there, which is, let me just catch up with the animations, is the pushing of that data. So what we're trying to do as a minimum is work with localities to recognize what, or to develop what a minimum data solution might look like. So what's the minimum data that we need to take from the app to push into your local systems so that we're not creating duplication by introducing the app in that locality. And we're doing this and working through this at the moment. We've got a big period of discovery workshops that we've just initiated, and we've just finished the second localities set of workshops last week, and then we'll be reinitiating them, reinstigating them in January next year. So this really just talks about the locality representation. Mendix, again, it's given us that flexibility and as I said, the ability to respond rapidly. We've been able to build on what we said we were going to build, which was just a health visiting application, and grow that out into nursery settings, which I think is really exciting because it allows us to bridge that gap between health and early education settings, and so to cross-sectoral use of that application. And then we're working with 9 out of the 10 to understand the integration requirements that those localities have. But really exciting times. It's a really well-received application that we've developed. Really good engagement across the region and nationally. We've got Kensington and Chelsea who approached us who wanted to look at the app. And we've got others in the pipeline who are asking if we can do demonstrations for them just to show what the app looks like, and not just from the application development perspective, but how we got around the copyright license restrictions that were in place. But it's been a really positive experience working with Mendix and Objectivity in developing this, something that's bringing real benefit to Greater Manchester as a region. And I'm not going to go too much into this. It's just a pictorial way of depicting what it is that we're trying to achieve at a regional level. The main ambition: sharing information better, pushing information from one professional to another, putting the citizen in control of their own data for the benefit of early years and school readiness across Greater Manchester. And one interesting and ambitious project that we're looking at, proposition that we're looking at is, I don't know if people have heard of the e-Red Book or the Red Book on the call. They know the NHS has been working with a number of suppliers to look at the potential e-Red Book solutions. And what they've also done, or in the process of doing, is develop a specification that other solutions that other suppliers should adhere to or must adhere to when they're developing any e-Red Books of their own. What we want to do is build out the early years application that we've developed on the Mendix platform to encompass the e-Red Book as well, so that parent carers across Greater Manchester have got a one-stop shop for not only developmental information for the child development, but also looking at immunisations, height, weight of children, and just creating a really rich product. And we're actually in conversations with the Department of Health and Social Care to discuss sharing our learning. As I said, we're the first region to do the developmental side in the early years app. It makes sense to me and to other stakeholders across Greater Manchester that we actually build on that and actually bring in that eRead book data as well and create that really rich tool for parents and carers and children across Greater Manchester with the aim and ambition of improving school readiness across the region. That's it from me.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Kieran. Does anyone have any questions? Please unmute and state your name if you're for Kieran. Any questions at all?
Yeah, if nobody else is volunteering, I don't mind asking a question, if that's okay.
Of course you can, Mark.
So, a question for Kieran would be: Can you tell us a bit about your Mendix delivery team and how that's set up and how you've kind of worked with objectivity and maybe done some sort of cross skilling using their input as well?
Yeah, so we haven't got an internal delivery team stood up. We've used objectivity to develop the application on our behalf. So we haven't got any internal developers who are supporting the development of apps at this moment in time. So maybe that question probably best posed to Knowsley, who've got that in-house function.
Yeah, that was from Mark, actually, Kieran.
Yeah, that was from Knowsley. So
it might be useful actually to get. So Nigel, do you want to just unmute?
Yeah, sure. Nick.
And just from the delivery partner's perspective, because I mean, I'm guessing, I might be wildly wrong here, but I'm guessing what Kieran and Greater Manchester Combined Authority have achieved early years could be achieved without low code, potentially with lots of other point solutions. But that is going to take a horrendous amount of time. It's going to be horrendously costly, etc., etc. I've been looking at and sort of championing low code for quite a long time now, and I'm still trying to sort of think, where's the catch? Because it just makes, even just from those figures that Kieran's sort of demonstrated there, the sort of 90% saving in sort of delivery and cost time and that sort of thing. So from your perspective as a delivery partner, how's the project gone for you guys? And I guess there is an alternative. I think when we're running these sorts of sessions, there is an alternative. But when you're talking about business cases, if you were to put the alternative into a business case, it becomes that no-brainer, I guess. Would that be right?
Yeah, I think Kieran's highlighted a few things. There was the speed of delivery, the flexibility to change things and add things on, because GMCA have got a far bigger long-term agenda, and they might not have been able to do that with traditional coding because it would just become one enormous project that would have been hard to manage and hard to be so flexible. But in terms of the other question, obviously, Mark's team, has grown and developed. GMCA haven't got the luxury of that. Well, if it's a luxury, if that's the right word for it, but haven't had the luxury to build a team, and hence we've been involved. Longer term, I hope we're still involved, but I wouldn't be surprised if there will be a small development team in GMCA.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, and also I'm guessing, because we have talked about this, and so obviously the Mendix platform and the other, the Civica and Egress and that sort of thing, sit on a Greater Manchester digital platform, from what I can gather. And so that potentially there is, and Kieran, you correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a Greater Manchester Combined Authority strategy, of which there are a number of phases, or a number of different sort of potential projects, which again could be delivered using some of the learning and the Mendix platform, and also there's a digital blueprint as well, I believe.
Yeah, so definitely. So we've we recognised that we needed something that we could move with at speed and pace, but also we didn't want to. We did actually go around for a first round of procurement and actually went out for the whole digital platform as one procurement, which didn't result in what we wanted back. So we ended up splitting it up and going out and getting best of breed solutions. And obviously Mendix being that local capability that we went out and tendered for. With regards delivery partners, we need to move at pace again. So as I was saying before, we didn't have the skills internally to be able to do that. So to mitigate that risk, we went out and we got someone that was experienced in developing on the Mendix platform and we could work with, that were trusted and experienced in this particular area, which is why we went with the delivery partner. We had very tight timescales that we were working to, and a lot of political pressures coming from the mayor as well, who wanted to meet or exceed national school readiness by April 2020 was his ambition, and we've made some strides towards that. So we definitely wanted to make sure that we were working with that trusted partner, able to move rapidly. But as Nigel was saying, we are looking at how we strengthen our internal delivery capability as well.
Excellent. I guess another question always strikes fear into the hearts of people when I ask this, but obviously you've talked about all the positives, but what about, were there any negatives? Like, was it difficult to sell, there's the strategy, internally to people? I mean, what were the barriers? What were the issues? Because sometimes it's far easier to replicate a mistake. Certainly my wife tells me that I have a great knack at replicating mistakes on an almost daily basis. But if people were to take sort of things away from this particular session, I think it goes without saying that low code at the moment is certainly, I think, becoming the technology of choice in the public sector, and certainly local government, because of all the things you've identified: the agility, the speed to deliver, the cost saving, taking your own transformation journey back in house, having control over it. It goes on and on and on. But I think sometimes, certainly I've been speaking to people. I know procurement sometimes can be difficult because people are used to procuring point solutions, something that just necessarily deals with one part of the problem, whereas actually what we're talking about is something that deals with all of the problem and actually stuff that into the future. But what about the issues? Come on, any? Anne-Louise, do you want to unmute?
Yeah, so just similar to what you were saying there, Nick, like everything you hear about it, it can do all these things, but there must be a catch, must be a reason why people are kind of are doing coding and the proper kind of the development. Like, what is the difference? Or is there not? Have we just discovered a whole new world and like our developers are going to be out of jobs?
Well, I know that sort of in the past, what we're not talking about is turkeys voting for Christmas. What we're talking about is, I think Mark will also come on to this as well, is I think it's all about freeing up development capability, IT development capability, or even potentially sort of it's stuff that they could use. But I don't know, I'll hand over to people that know far more than I. Kieran, do you want to, and Nigel and Nick, Spotify, do you want to maybe comment on that?
I mean, I can't really speak from that technical perspective. I mean, but from a program management perspective, I didn't encounter any issues with the development and the build of the actual application on Mendix. One of the challenge that we had really was the engagement across all 10 of the council areas and getting them to contribute and building up those user stories and requirements and agreeing on that consistent approach and set of requirements. But I think once we actually got those requirements, from my perspective, we flew with that. It was about 18 months worth of engagement and then 6 months worth of development and getting through the product through to live. So from a technical developer perspective, I can't answer that question, but from a program management perspective, we didn't encounter any significant issues that you wouldn't have encountered through a project or program using any kind of development.
Nigel, Mark, Nick, do you want to? Nick, do you want to explain up?
Yeah, I mean, so from my perspective, I think that coding has always been the traditional method. It is the safe and proven method for many organizations. And what low code proposes is doing things a little bit differently. And perhaps the challenge certainly for me, is a cultural one. So we are suggesting that you do things a little bit differently. You let business people become more involved in the creation of applications than they ever have done in the past. And that can be difficult for some businesses to be able to implement. There isn't a constraint in what applications you can create. You can pretty much create anything. We used to say you can't make games, but you can, in fact, make very basic non-Fortnite-esque games for you to play. But there isn't a constraint from that. I think it really is one of culture that affects things. I don't know if anyone else has got any thoughts.
I would say on the subject of turkeys voting for Christmas, I think that was one of the fears that we had right at the start, but it hasn't turned out to be that way. I think everybody who works with me who started using the product has really enjoyed using it and has seen just how more productive it makes them, which is a good thing. And I think the skills traditionally associated with software engineering and computer programming about being able to, put process flows together, understanding where information is passing around the system and how to keep it safe and secure and intact and keep the integrity. All those things still apply. You're just allowing yourself to do all those things quicker. So some of my colleagues who are very experienced programmers, they've picked Mendix up and they've got to know it and have really enjoyed using it, and it hasn't seen us like shed a load of programmers and replace them with a group of low coders. That just hasn't happened at all. It's just everybody's just kind of sort of moved on with it and done really well. So in terms of what the catch is, I mean, obviously there's a revenue cost that maybe you didn't have there before, so that's one of the things, and that's sometimes hard for an organisation to get its head around, especially if, I mean, there was somebody spoke earlier about having an open source solution. Was it using Drupal? So I would imagine that's fairly low on cost, on revenue cost, and to suddenly bring a low code platform in where you're having to find that money every year, that can be a challenge. But that's kind of the way that things are. I know that Microsoft's low code offerings such as Power Apps are exactly the same. So it's just a business case to be made. I think the other thing to say is that low code it's not even something for the future anymore. It is now. More and more organizations are taking it on and doing it, and the world is evolving around it, certainly in terms of building systems and software engineering. So it's definitely something that's here to stay.
I would concur, Mark, in terms of technically, because our practice lead, Michael, is also a Microsoft MVP, which is only sort of 200 in the world, and he's a complete advocate of Mendix, as well as Microsoft. But he doesn't see there it's one against the other.
No, definitely not. I mean, we like a lot of organizations, we've brought Microsoft 365 in over the last couple of years, and there's Power Apps, etc. in that, and again, it's just another tool in your arsenal. We're not ever going to advocate one over the other, because there's no point, because you get there's different pros and cons to both, so why not take advantage of it all?
We've got another question from our friend from Steve from Hampshire. Are you there, Steve?
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Right. So I see you popped something in the chat there. Yeah. No. I mean, I think I said at the beginning that we're saying the start. We've actually been persevering with this for several months, but in terms of developing a low code strategy, so we do have some specific apps that we could take and bring through, but actually we're trying to bring it in as a general change and approach to the way that we do things. But I'm just curious to know whether people found selling the strategy of low code, whether it's a specific vendor or just the idea,
difficult, because we are feeling that. I think some of our business units actually are champing at the bit, especially since some of them are aware of Mendix, and because we've been sort of talking about it, they've gone and had a look at it, and they're coming back to say, when can we start this? Are you doing any pilots? We want to be part of that. But our IT department are very kind of reticent or unreceptive. I think they are very concerned about the change or the potential change, and it is a cultural shift, really. I mean, the way that Angela and I are trying to position it is working much closer with our departments in terms of building the apps that they want, and so they would be part of that process of building the apps, whereas historically they come to IT and say, we need this, and we kind of shut the door and say, thank you very much. We do a ton of work and then open the door and pump it out the other end, and it's never quite right, and it's also very expensive and takes a long time, and for many things that's just not appropriate. There are some things where that is the way that we would do things. But I don't know what people's experience is in terms of bringing in a new platform like this.
Well, Steve, as luck would have it, he wasn't here before, then he popped up. Our sort of Lowry backgrounded friend, Mr. Mike Ward, has done that very thing. So as I admitted Steve was just talking about, you can see in the chat, they 7 months into a sort of, the selling of a low-code strategy internally at Hampshire County Council, where they've got different departments chomping at the bit, but IT very traditional in approach. Do you want to share some of your wisdom in getting your low-code strategy sort of corporately embraced?
Yeah, I mean, we generated a lot of excitement, I suppose, in the organisation by sharing what our plans were and demonstrating the platforms and surveying staff and officers and asking them what they wanted from a digital solution and what they thought would improve their service delivery. And we built a lot of that into the business case and involved groups of officers from all over the council in the selection process as well. And when they selected the platforms, they really liked what they saw and are really keen to get involved and embrace it. As far as after we'd acquired the platform, as far as rolling it out is concerned, that's outside of IT now. We have a business development team that was solely responsible for the development and the rollout of the processes. So none of them have got a traditional IT development background at all. There's 3 developers, 1 trainer, and a person to lead them. So none of them are traditional programmers, which is good. Sometimes you do need to have a little bit of background in programming regarding the rapidity with which you keep rolling out changes. But the other thing they're finding is as you know, with development, the customer tells you what you want, you develop it, and then you give it to them, and they say, "Oh, it was nothing like that. What I wanted, what I really meant was." So with the low-code solution, we find it's really easy to kind of wireframe the process before you finish building it. So you can start building it almost as a wireframe, check with the customer that they're on the right track, or with the department or the area, and then finish it. So that's proven quite useful. And of course, the rapidity with which we've been able to, spin up COVID solutions like everyone else has been, has paid dividends for us as well.
Yeah.
Go on, Steve.
Yeah, so that's. Go on.
I think Steve's trying to get on the fact that IT could be the sticking point. Is that right, Steve?
Yeah, they do. Not entirely, but yeah, there are certainly a couple of quite senior stakeholders in that area that they are concerned about high initial investment and low return on investment, which we can't understand why they are getting that message from anywhere, because everything that we've presented illustrates completely the opposite. But I think that actually it's basically rooted in a fear of change, because it is going to be a different way of working or a different way of delivering, and I think that's actually what worries them more.
Yeah. And I think as long as you've got sort of a central design authority, if you like, with the low-code applications, so that they all look and feel the same, to a large extent, you won't need IT. That's probably what worries them.
Yeah, well, it's odd because to some extent we're saying to our business units that, you know, IT should become more of they should be less involved with us because they should have more ability to go and do what they want on their own. So we should be shrinking, and yet on the other hand, we don't want to help them. Which
and what I'm planning to do is to train a couple of my they are going through the training courses, so I'll train a couple of my developers to develop on the low-code platform, but really to focus on all of the internal facing processes, which are really inefficient and based on old word forms, you know, for overtime claims or probation reviews and all that sort of stuff. That's just an old Word document sitting on the intranet that has no automation behind it at all. And that's what I want my IT people to get involved in, really.
And when you kind of initiated the Mendix Road, did you move in with a fairly sort of low investment, if you like, in terms of an app or one or two apps that were developed with a small user base, or did you actually kind of jump in feet first and go for something bigger as a much more strategic direction right from the outset?
Well, we're not using Mendix.
Okay,
but I suspect, and Nigel could correct me here, the principles are the same.
Yeah.
So we initially focused on two areas. We were going to focus on refining the way the CRM and the case management tool looked first, to make it look and feel how we wanted it, based on all the things we'd learned with the platform that we were retiring. And then COVID came along and kind of diverted attention to just creating the apps as quickly as we possibly could. But now there's a phased approach, if you like, of starting with a number of processes that don't interact too much with the back office, like FOI requests or complaints or other things like that. So, and then later on down the line next year, we'll start thinking about how we can integrate with some of the revs and bends and planning and environmental health, but not to use it to rewrite the forms that are already there, but to use it as a way of delivering and prioritizing work in a more intelligent way than those systems do. Then that's what we've done before, because it is tempting to use the APIs to rewrite existing functionality. But what I found last time is users, environmental health, don't want to use another system other than their environmental health system, for example. And you can talk to them all as much as you like about how it's not all about you and it's about the reporting and it's about its commonality. But in the end, it's an argument you never win. So it's what I want to do this time, is just to let them carry on using their system, but get their work delivered to them by the workflow tool in the low-code platform.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that is kind of our focus area, is some of those similar sounding tools actually initially.
Excellent, thanks, Mike. Hope that's helped, Steve. Yeah. Any more observations or questions for Kieran at all? So I tell you what, Kieran. So when do you? Because I know that we've talked, and you guys at GMC are hoping to do a number of webinars and sessions in the new year, just really pushing what you've achieved with early years. And then, but when's the next big milestone or goal for you guys?
So as I talked about, we've got the early years program, which is early years and early education, and that's likely to be still being rolled out over the next 12 months and next financial year. We've got a use case looking at victims of crime, looking at how we can provide a user interface for citizens of Greater Manchester that are going through the criminal justice system, and providing them with an application that not only provides them with really useful information, but also, again, integrates back into the GMP police system and pushes data out into the app so that victims of crime are kept really up to date with how their crime or instance is proceeding. So that's the next big piece. We've just got a business case pulled together for that, and that'll again be GM wide. So we have very much looked at this as a strategic tool and jumped in both feet first, as someone referred to. But we can see the definite benefits of it. As the gentleman was alluding to on the call, we can't or won't tell people to stop using their existing systems and across Greater Manchester. But what we have identified is that Mendix is a really good tool for supplementing the gaps within localities where there might be one that's more mature than another and doesn't actually have that digital capability, or we're trying to do something from the centre that none of the 10 councils have done before, and we want to respond rapidly to that. So early years is a great example. It's an agreed model across the 10 councils, but it's all paper based. So there wasn't one solution that was doing any of that across the region. So people were willing to take that on board. When you try and go in and try and change things and say you need to use this for the specific purpose, that's where the conversations get a bit more touchy with the localities. But yeah, so they could see the benefit. It wasn't changing any of their local systems. It wasn't interfering with our local roadmaps, and the GMCA were leading that. So we didn't get that level of restriction or resistance from people. But yeah, definitely as a strategic tool, we're looking at how we can bring together troubled families data and presenting that back through a front end solution. But what we really want to do now is get this early years application, early education app rolled out, realise those benefits across Greater Manchester as a region, and that then feeds into our longer term roadmap and supports that wider digital transformation that we've got planned.
Excellent. Thanks, Kieran. Been really, really interesting. All right, so if there's no more, obviously there'll be a copy of this, obviously once Kieran's given it the once over. So thanks very much, Kieran. And I guess you're all right for people to, if they want your details, Kieran, I'm kept up to date with, when the next webinars and that sort of thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to reach out or got any questions or want anything sharing, I'm more than happy to pick that up.
Excellent, that's brilliant. All right, well, also then we're going to have Mr. Mark Perry live from Knowsley Hall. And Mark, obviously, again, another Mendix user, but very different in size of organisation, complexity, culture, maybe financial resource. I guess the list goes on and on and on. You're both in the north. That's the common denominator. Both local governments. Obviously, we've worked together on a couple of stand-up routines, as it were, talking about Knowsley's use of Mendix, and you've obviously been busy since I last saw you or didn't see you. For those that the very short story is that Mark was supposed to be presenting in London at an event when there was a big rail strike problem issue, and I had to do it for him. Actually, the feedback was far better for the one that he didn't come to than the one he did turn up to in Manchester. So I mean, that sort of says it all. But anyway, we got him on this session to talk us through what's been going on at Knowsley over the last couple of years. I think that's the last time I saw you in real life, Mark. Obviously, we've had this COVID-19 thing, which has caused a great deal of pressure and upset and issues to local authorities and people across the country. So do you want to just tell us what have you been up to with low code?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So yeah, 2020 hasn't it been a strange year for everybody? And I think organisations, local authorities have had to deal with a lot of rapid change over quite a short period of time. I mean, who would have thought that we'd all be working from home every day like we've been doing? I just couldn't have seen that happening 9 months ago. But yeah, here I am sat in my house at the moment, talking to you all. So it's been pretty incredible. I think for us, 2020 is the year that Mendix and low code probably entered the organisational vocabulary. It was definitely in the IT vocabulary up until that point, because we've been using the product in the IT service for, as I said, for 4 years. So we knew about it. And, you know, we achieved a lot of results with it. But I think that 2020 was the year that people in the rest of the business kind of sat up and took notice of the kind of the low code approach and the agile approach to doing things. I think one of the main reasons for that was COVID, because how can you design a response to a global pandemic using the traditional waterfall method of software design? You just can't do it. It's not like you could have said in March, oh, COVID-19 is happening, so here's what we want from a system. Come back in 3 months' time and you know, sort of deliver what you've done, and everything will be fine. It just wouldn't happen. One of the things we did pretty much straight away was we built a volunteer hub, which allowed residents and volunteers to kind of put their information in, request help if they're a resident, or offer to volunteer if they're a member of the public who had some time on their hands. And we spun an application up using low code very, very quickly. You know, we were able to put changes into it every day, and we saw very quickly more and more parts of the business come in to start taking advantage of it. Various different people in social care, customer services, our internal performance team for kind of looking at the performance management side of things, so they could keep track of what was going on. Things to do with vetting the volunteers, all kind of different things. And we were able to use, you know, the low code platform to build it quickly and to respond to change very quickly. And people kind of sat up and went, wow, that's really, really good. We don't know how you're able to do this stuff so fast. And the answer is because we abandoned the more traditional methods of doing this sort of thing.
When you say quickly, Mark, when you say quickly, how quick are we talking?
I mean, honestly, it sounds like you're showing off when you say it, and I'm really not. But I think we had the idea to do it on a Tuesday, and I think we launched the thing on the Friday evening, the very first iteration of it. You know, so from somebody getting around the table and going, we should probably do something online because it'll save a lot of phone calls. It'll save a lot of officer time for having to deal with those phone calls. It'll save like having to have data in Excel spreadsheets in various different places if we can just get one, you know, data management system in place where everything is going into. So I think from having that initial idea and conversation between a few of us, and then, you know, a couple of us working on it and doing something, and it was available on the Friday evening at like 5 o'clock, I think, for people to start using over the weekend. So it was quick, you know. And I think, you know, what low code sort of fosters is that agile approach to doing things, and that mentality that, you know, we are going to respond to change quickly, and we are going to kind of, you know, we're going to do things at pace and say to the rest of the organization, can you keep up with us? You know, I think that's the challenge sometimes. So that's definitely a positive thing. In terms of what else we worked on in 2020, things to support COVID. So we did an internal risk register that we got up and running very fast. We've done some work supporting business grant applications. So as the various different grant schemes have come out from central government to support businesses that have been furloughed or businesses that have been affected by COVID shutdown, we've put grant application systems in place for them to apply for money, and for the kind of the exchequer services officers to kind of assess the applications and approve them and get them paid. Again, really important in what is a really difficult time for a lot of people. We've also started working on our in-cab technology project as well to get mobile devices into some of our bin wagons and start trying to you know, get some benefit there, try to make the collection of bins and try and make it a little bit more efficient. So we've started down that route using low code as well, which has been great. I think sort of moving forward next year, I think we're starting to look at where we've got information assets that we can release to kind of you know, make things better for the community. We started talking about some emergency planning stuff today, where we might want to make some data available securely to a specific group of people. So I think again, low code will be supporting that. So it's you know, it's interesting times. We've always got a lot of projects on, and I think we've got to a point now where the team that I manage is at capacity as well. We're a little bit different, as it's been pointed out earlier, that we do have the luxury of an in-house development team that's interested in doing this stuff and able to do it, and that's one of the differences between the GMCA where they don't have that capacity, and that I think for Knowsley that's a good thing, because it keeps us kind of in the driving seat of what we want to do. We've got a really good relationship with most of the business areas across the authority, and when they want stuff doing that one of the bigger case management systems can't do, if we're able to do it, and you know, the business thinks it's a good idea, then we can generally do it. I think you have to have an awareness of what else is going on across the authority as well. And I know that the colleague, Steve from Hampshire, said that his IT service are a bit hesitant about going down the low code route. We're a little bit different, because I've got that relationship with the IT service, because I work for the head of IT, and I'm aware of what, you know, what case management systems we've got, like iWorld, like Logic, etc. And if we are getting asked to do stuff, there's always that challenge to say, well, does it better sit in a case management system, or does it better sit in something bespoke? And you know, we've always got that kind of awareness of what's going on, which helps maybe stop things getting developed that didn't need to get developed. If if it's quicker to do it in the case management system we've got, why not do that? Why not take advantage of it? I think in terms of the team that I manage, it's been a great way of bringing some people into software engineering that maybe wouldn't traditionally have done it. So we've got people there that probably wouldn't have seen themselves as software developers when they started out, but are using low code every day to achieve results, and you know, they've got a lot of job satisfaction for it. They've got a lot of different interesting projects that they're working on, which is one of the great things about working for local government. There's always something interesting around the corner. You never have to work on the same thing for very long, because there's always another 100 things sort of competing for your attention. So it's a great place to be in at the moment. And I think, what else do I think? You know what? I'm going to see if there's any questions, because I'm running out of things to say. So does anybody have any questions?
Is it, well, I always think it's interesting, because, and Steve, you might want to unmute here. Does your IT department, you know, are they up to date with all their work? You know, are they constantly under duress with requests from business units asking for stuff to be done? Are they sort of completely clear and sat there waiting for things to happen, or is there a big backlog of stuff that needs to be done?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how best to answer that. There is certainly a backlog. I think the bigger problem that we have is there's a perception across the business that they don't want to work with IT because it takes too long and it costs too much to have something developed. Because we, for whatever reason, seem to focus in on a real artisan approach. You know, so if you want a website, then it's going to be a Sitecore developed thing that's going to start from scratch, and it's going to cost, even if it's a real simple thing, it's going to cost you £30,000 to £50,000 as a developer. So that's a sort of problem. But there is a backlog. They are busy, ironically, having just said what I've just said, but they are busy. It just, we feel, you know, from the sort of strategy team perspective, it's too complicated, too expensive, and takes too long to do many of the things. Some of the things will have to go that way, and that's fine. It's just, for example, with COVID, I mean, listening to Mark, and we've spoken to Mark before actually, so it's quite nice to hear those stories, experiences again. We've built nothing really in terms of COVID response to our citizens, because it all takes too long.
Yeah.
By the time we've built it, we won't need it anymore, which is just, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real frustration for us, or for some of us anyway. So we're, that's why we're really, really keen to get an enterprise class low code tool in. I mean, we use Power Apps. I should put that out there, but we only use Power Apps within the context of the O365. I nearly said free. What I mean is, you have that capability as part of the O365 world. As soon as you want to step out of anything O365, you need premium connectors, and the way that Microsoft build the cost model around that is, I know there are ways that you can kind of ring fence things off, but it becomes incredibly complex to manage. And we just don't see that with other low code platforms.
So senior management, Steve, obviously there are lots of people at the moment promoting and talking about how they have responded, how their particular council or their particular locality have responded to COVID. So what do the senior management, when they see this sort of stuff and they say, well, how have we responded? And there isn't anything because it takes too long. Does that not sort of ring alarm bells for them?
Well, I think it's part of the sort of process that Andrew and I are going through at the moment is to actually raise those flags and those concerns, to be honest. I think part of what we have at the moment is a lot of our departments, they don't know what they don't know, so they don't know what they're missing.
Right. Yeah.
But they are starting to become aware of it, because Andrew and I have been talking to various people about Mendix and other, that kind of, low code approaches to things. That they are, as I think I said earlier, they are starting to go off and have a look and becoming aware of, the capabilities and what can be delivered. And so we are starting to get demand and awareness across the business. But I think we have our director of IT is very receptive, but on his own he can't do this. And I think the immediate management team beneath him is split.
Right.
And that's what we're kind of working on at the moment. The big problem that we have is SP23, the savings plan for 2023 that we've got from government. So they are pretty much focused on their savings, and it's completely untrue to say they don't care about the rest of the business, because of course they do. But in terms of their savings plan, if children's or adults or CCBS or anyone else could use this product to go and save loads of money, they can't cash that saving. IT can't cash that saving, so they don't it directly from that. So that's the kind of rub that we've got. There is actually nothing to stop the departments just going and starting to build things on Mendix. And, that is an approach. Andrew and I are trying to corral them together, or, we're trying to present a corporate strategy rather than having, 5 different departments firing off in different directions, doing things on their own.
Yeah.
Which might happen if we're not careful. And that wouldn't necessarily be bad, but we would then want to bring it all back together. So I don't know. Those are our sort of challenges that we're facing.
I can actually feel your pain through the screen. I don't know if anyone else can, but as you talk, then Friday night, the gym bottle by about 8:30, probably empty.
We're meeting.
The cooking sherry comes out. It sounds like hard work.
And then the meths, we're meeting one of our most troublesome stakeholders tomorrow morning, actually, which is why when Nick Spotafora gave us the opportunity to join on this call, it was quite timely just to listen to what people are saying. So, Kieran's kind of experiences and comments and marks are really helpful, because it just gives you threads of conversation to take into that meeting tomorrow. The chap we're meeting tomorrow kind of owns our developer community,
right?
And I think he is worried about the potential impact it might have on that group of people in terms of numbers of heads and that kind of thing. So
I think on that subject, I think the way that I would see it is you can either do something yourself, or you can let it be done to you. I think the colleague you're talking about he's got the opportunity to kind of grab this, with both hands and make it, make it go the way that he wants to go and involve his team in it, or it will happen, because it's happening. It just is. I mean, I saw an email that was forwarded to me. It was about the big four consultancy firms. I won't mention the names, but everybody knows what I'm talking about, and about the capacity that they're building in this sort of thing as well. So it's like, it is becoming more and more of a thing, and I think. I think it's a challenging conversation to have, but I mean, as I've said, my experience, my developers, right through from the most senior one right down to the most junior one, they've all in different ways sort of grabbed the low code philosophy and picked up the tools and had a go, and just seen that actually, yeah, it's not about like throwing away everything that you've sort of learned before and spent 20 years maybe learning. It's not that at all. It's about, adapting the skills and the knowledge that you've got and just making yourself more productive. So,
Mark, I know you've developed a lot of apps, and have you actually developed any apps that replace an off-the-shelf sort of package? I think that's what Amanda Clarkson leading to in her question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Apps? I don't think we've done any. We've certainly not built anything that would replace anything enormous off the shelf. I mean, so for example, like anything like iWorld for Evs and Bens or the Liquid Logic social care systems, they're just vast and colossal, and we couldn't ever do anything like that. I think there are some other opportunities where maybe maybe systems are coming up for tender, where we could potentially do something in-house. But to be honest, a lot of what we've done are things where there wasn't really anything there before, and we just kind of moved into the space and done something. We've seen an opportunity, or a head of service has sort of seen an opportunity and said, "Oh, do you think you could do something about this?" Anything off the shelf we might have done would be quite small, and sort of revenue wise to the business, it wouldn't be a massive chunk of cash. But the benefit then is that we've got full control over the kind of the roadmap for that product. So rather than buying off the shelf where you're relying on somebody else, the business unit that wants to do it, they've kind of got it all in their hands, because they can work with us and they can take it off in the direction they want it to go. And that most people, once they get their heads around that, they actually find that really helpful.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else? Any more questions?
Mark, it's Amanda Clark, sorry. Can I just finish off that question about waste? Because I'm from York, and we're in the middle.
My sister lives in Haxby, just outside of York.
Oh, well, Haxby's my next village. I'm at home in Bristol, right. So.
Oh, well, there you go. So nice to meet you.
You know it well, and you. We're at the middle of replacing our waste system. So that was kind of, Nigel was right. That's part of my question about whether the low code can replace an entire system. But it was more whether when you make that assessment about particularly waste, because it's not complex, like you say, like some of the other revenues and benefits type processes. I'm not doing a disservice to any waste related colleagues, but essentially it's a bit of route optimization. That's one element of it. You might have another product that does a bit of health and safety with some cameras attached to the vehicles and sort of the tech that's more load based, and then you've got a bit of a back office bit that tells you who qualifies for what, and then the in-cab bit that essentially says where you are and what you've done. So breaking the system down into those specific elements, I was interested as to whether you've got a back office waste system that just doesn't do the in-cab bit particularly well. So how come you landed on that particular element of waste delivery for low code?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So there's two different answers to that. If you look at it from the point of view of my boss, the reason we're doing it is because it was interesting to do, and it's more interesting than some other projects. So that's kind of his his opinion of it. My opinion is that so we do have an in-house sort of waste system that we use, and I think we decided that if we did something ourselves, in the long run, it become more cost effective, because while it might be more expensive to get going, because obviously we're putting time in from officers that could be doing other things, in the long run we'd end up with something bespoke that we could keep modifying and keep sort of adding information into. And we'd have control of that ourselves. So I think that's why the management down at the depot that manage our waste services, that's why they were comfortable with letting us do it rather than getting an external company to do it. I agree with what you say. From experience, waste services tends to be made up of a lot of little systems all working together to do the various different things. They don't have one sort of overarching system that does everything. So it is a good way in to get some low code business transformation done.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent.
Just to add, Nick, I was talking to Steve about waste and some of the other examples where we've done that with some other customers, and one of the things that jumped out is just making little changes. And I don't know if Mark wants to talk to making a little change to an application which allows it to be used during the pandemic, for example, is so much easier when you're using something low code than it is to have to go back and develop it in a traditional method. I don't know, Mark, have you had any thoughts about little changes?
Yeah, I mean, Nick's absolutely right. And I just every time that I had to do something on Friday afternoon to do with something we've got for login service desk calls, and what they wanted was a new version of the login form created with its own sort of set of parameters, and I was able to do that in a couple of hours on a Friday afternoon when the guy who normally looks after it was off on holiday. I hadn't looked at the application for months, but because it's also because we're all working on it together and we're all familiar with how it all works, I was able to do it and get it tested and get it deployed within a couple of hours. And you're right, it's that little change. It's like one of the questions is, it's a good question. Can you replace some of the big things with what you're doing? Well, you can if you've got enough resources to throw at it. But also, in those circumstances, the business needs to make a change on a Friday afternoon to support something else that was critical. This was to do with the COVID mass testing. Actually, it was something to do with that, which is really, really important. It's absolutely vital to get all that right, and we were able to make that change very quickly on a Friday afternoon. And sort of stay in control of it. So yeah, that's a roundabout way of saying yes.
Any more questions? Any more observations? Anyone at all who hasn't spoken but would like to?
Just a quick comment, Nick. I do find what you were saying. You felt Steve's pain, and I can I used to work for a unitary council, and what he was saying just sounded exactly like used to happen there and still does happen there. And no matter how hard you tried, the best you could ever deliver was mediocrity, I think, because there was no joined up thinking, and there'd be a problem in one side of the council that could be solved by a piece of software in IT, but the people with the problem couldn't have the solution because they hadn't got enough money for the internal to satisfy the needs of the internal charging system. So nothing happened. And that the comment about being worried about low code, it doesn't have to end in a headcount, because it sounds to me like there's so much work that could be done to make the rest of the organization efficient. That there'd be more than enough work, but the trouble is there's no such thing between departments when everyone's got their own budget. There's no such thing as altruism, is there? No one wants to spend X amount here to save 2X there because they're not incentivized to do it that way. And you just end up not making any progress at all. And until that changes,
and from your experience,
a bit of enlightened thought.
And from your experience, Mike, does it help to have sort of a senior champion within the business to do that? Someone who maybe sits across all of those different silos?
Yeah, absolutely. And as we're 2 district councils with a non-siloed structure, so that the both IT and the entirety, if you like, of case management sit under one directorate, which makes it quite a big directorate, but it means that you don't have those selfish challenges, if you like, of, you know, saving money here to only saves on your budget and only costs money somewhere else. And we try to be sensitive to that. You know, when we make these sort of saving decisions. But we try to be, it's an interesting habit to get into, trying to be altruistic and looking for savings elsewhere and looking for inefficiencies elsewhere that can save people time to, or you know, you could distill it down into headcount, but we try not to do that because they can always do the job better if they've got more time. Or after COVID, you know, we've got the members have had a bit of a think about what they want to do, and they've got all these aspirations about other services. And of course, what I'm hoping is that as we make processes more and more efficient, it'll release resources to deliver on some of these aspirations that the councillors have got for next year. So,
brilliant. Thanks, Mark. Steve, just quickly, Steve's asked, do you use low code to create online forms?
Yes.
Mark, you as well?
Yep.
Kieran as well?
I'd say 90% of it at the moment is online forms. Right. We did a lot of customer services stuff at the start, and what we tend to find now is that other people in departments find out that we've done that and sort of come back to us and say, oh, well, we've got this Word document that we would normally send out by email. Can you just put it online for us, and it'll make it all quicker? And that's what we do most of the time.
Integrated with the back office?
Where we can, yeah. We're doing some of that at the moment with fly tipping and noise pollution, where we're redoing the integration for that to make that work better, and less sort of maintenance heavy, and that goes live on the 22nd of December, I think. So that's really good. I mean, from a Knowsley point of view, I feel really fortunate because we've always had that buy-in from the top that this was the way to go. Our chief executive says a lot that one of the reasons Knowsley's works really well is because everybody's kind of in one place. We're not like some authorities are, where you've got pockets of employees scattered in different geographical locations. Everybody working for Knowsley is generally based on the Huyton campus. Everybody knows each other really well, and you know, we've always had that buy-in to kind of work together and get stuff done. And I think over COVID, I've been part of some working groups to do different things, and it's been really, really amazing how sort of people have pulled together and got us to do our bit, and everybody else has done their bit, and things have worked out generally pretty well. So yeah, it's good.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to have to bring it to a close. That has been a very interesting interesting set of presentations, stroke discussions. You know, I think to summarise, you know, low code, as Mark says, low code's not the future. Low code is now, and there's lots of people doing bits and pieces with low code. Mike's doing stuff for low code. Mark, Kieran, there's plenty of other people. Obviously, there is. It does sound like it's the technology is almost like you know, it's a no-brainer. It's the cultural change that seems to be, you know, the sticking point. And maybe Mrs. Spotify, what we can do is come up with some ideas. You know, even maybe we'll do a bit of a survey, get a list together of maybe ways of overcoming, or certainly, you know, ways of overcoming certain barriers to low-code implementation.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Whether we can help you, Steve, I think you've already, you know, we'd have to, it's obviously sort of taken up too many hours of your life banging your head against a wall and obviously sort of damaging your liver, but we'll keep your fingers, our collective fingers crossed for tomorrow's meeting.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get there. I'm sure we'll get there. We will get there. It's just how we get there. It would be nice to drive it, you know, front and center through.
Yeah. And have everyone with you, as opposed to you know, doing stuff to people. Like Mark said, it sounds, you know, when you're doing everything collectively and together, it's obviously a far better experience. And I do know other organisations where they are doing it as a sort of service area. They're doing it independently of other areas that should be working collaboratively, but they still can't sort of overcome that. But this has been excellent. Well, I'd like to thank Kieran. Kieran, thank you very much. You're very festive there in your.
Make a bit of an effort. No worries.
Beautiful.
And Mark,
sorry, Nick. Do we want to ask Louise to choose our prize winner?
Louise.
I am here. I'm just not on video. Sorry, it's
That's
just
right.
the Wi-Fi was cracking up. But I would say that our winner is Mike, with his beautiful display of Larry behind you, I think.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Well done, Mike.
So I will. I'll get your details from Nick after this, and I'll drop you an email.
Excellent.
Thank you.
That's it. Look at that. Mendix branded PlayStation 5 coming your way.
A rare moment of job satisfaction.
Yeah. That's it.
There's an Xbox as well, and maybe even a Tesla.
As long as
it's like the gadget show, isn't it? This.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you everyone. That's been really interesting. That's been a really interesting session. I will send everybody the link to the recording, everything. We'll try and get, also there's a real-time transcript, so I'll try and get all the sort of salient points together to everyone. But yeah, thank you very much for making it a very interesting. Just trying to think, we're on Monday, aren't we? Monday afternoon. All these days sort of end up. They probably do for you, Steve. Every day's like Friday night, I should imagine at the moment. But yes.
Yeah, move from desk to fridge.
That's it. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your days. Thank you very much for participating. Take care, everyone. See you later.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you.
I'll catch up with you, Nigel.
Bye now.